Our lives are a string of insights, flashes of inspiration that can be the catalyst for new ideas. However, our pace of life these days means we tend to miss some of them completely. I'm Dave Hill, and I'm the host of the Simple Reflections podcast, a fortnightly series of interviews with people from all walks of life. Our conversations are an invitation to reflect on some of the simple insights my guests have had that have gone on to have a profound impact on their lives. So grab a cuppa and a biscuit, join us, slow down for a little while and see what shows up for you. Well, welcome to the next episode of the Simple Reflections podcast. Today I'm joined by Lila Turner. Lila is a partner with One Thought and the founder of Relationship Ready, and also the host of a podcast called Becoming Relationship Ready. I've known Lila now for about 7 years, I think 6 or 7 years, having been through the One Thought Foundations program with them at that time, and I've just had a lovely experience of working alongside her and with her, and I thought today would be a lovely opportunity to hear her thoughts on how we see insight. So, Lila, lovely to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and apologise for my cold in case that's coming across here.
All is good. No one can catch it. It's the important thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, and we had a little chat beforehand, which I really like this topic. So I think, Dave, you were saying how you were sitting on the first day of the first train that we do at One Thought with ideas about, insights and, waiting for that to happen, or thoughts about it, or the pressure you're putting on yourself, or what is it? And I thought that would be a really nice place to kick off, because I think where you are at is on a lot of people's minds. They have a lot of thinking because they hear the word insight getting floated around, and it's becoming a way magnified, like it's a RoboCop type event.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Or some kind of. And I just thought it would be it would be great if you could share it, because I think you're not alone in the thoughts that were drifting through your mind at that time.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, so yeah, we were talking 6-7 years ago now, and I had only, I think, been introduced to the principles as an idea about 2 or 3 months before starting the One Thought Foundation program, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But one of the things I found sitting in the audience that day was listening to other people and the language that they were using and going, what the hell is that? What is that all about? And insight was one of those things. I've had this big insight of, whoa, what is this thing? What's it all about? And it probably, don't know if it was that first weekend we were together, or in the month or so after that, certainly before we got back for the second weekend, it dawned on me that actually insight was just fresh thought. It was seeing something subtly differently, whether in the moment or reflecting back on how something had shifted as a result of seeing something differently. So it wasn't anything particular to it other than a moment of learning, for want of a better phrase. It just happens to have been tagged with the label of insight.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember sitting the first day, because before you, I trained with One Thought before I was doing this work, and I wasn't training to become a practitioner. I was training because I'd had an insight, which I wouldn't have described as an insight. I would have described it as an experience of being at the London conference. So this is going back 13 years. And I had stopped trying to learn the principles, because I'd been around them for so many years, and it seemed they seemed to, whatever was happening seemed to be working on other people differently from me. So I was around, 29 years. I've been around this for like 29 years. And the reason why I'm in a relationship with Aaron to this day is because he had an insight. But it was really small, gentle, normal insight about anxiety and our relationship that changed the course of our relationship life in 90 seconds or something. It sounds a bit drama, but his insight was very, it was, I mean, my words, you'd have to get Tim to describe it. It was like, in a way, quite practical and gentle and liberating, but there was no drama. There was no good cheek, cheek, cheek. But so I'd been around it. The grace of my life was the benefit of the things he was seeing. And I could tell, like, I think we both came into our relationship quite anxious people in different ways. I never thought I was anxious because I was creative. I thought because I didn't think of I thought I was just feeling a lot of creative thoughts and feelings. But if you took a taste test of the feelings I was living, it was like, come on, come on, come on. What if? And, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. There was, but so I'd been around this for a really long time and my life had changed, even though I hadn't had any insights that I was really aware of, like no big bang moments, that everybody else seemed to be having these experiences. And I saw, from my position, I saw people change. And the thing I saw most wasn't people's insights. I saw that they started to look more at ease in themselves. And when they were around other people, they looked like they were having this really best life, like really rich conversations that were very at ease. That really struck me. I was like, you all seem super happy and happy to hang. And I didn't find hanging out super easy. I wanted to be able to because that looked really nice, but I felt like a kid, staring into a sweetie shop at the window with my nose pressed against the window. I'm like, that looks so good. I wish I could do that. And then I would kind of try and go and be in these lovely conversations. But I was just so intense and sped up. I was kind of like a bit like stirring in Marmite into ice cream. It was all a bit... It's all a bit like, oh, everybody seems they don't seem all so soft anymore when I came and hung out, I mean, my words, but my experience it's like, everybody seems to be changing and I don't. So I'd given up on principles working on me. It's like, when people recommend hair products or amazing skin creams, didn't do anything for me. It's like, oh, fine, I'll stop using that. So I'm sitting at the London conference, not looking to learn. I'm looking to hang out and see some friends at lunch who'd come from the US. I was like, well, I'm going to see some people. It was like I really had nothing on it for the first time. Whereas before that, I really I wanted to get something what everybody else was getting, but I had no idea why it wasn't working on me. I mean, honestly, it sounds like a topical cream when I talk about it that way. So I remember being at this conference, and day 3, it was just really one of those lucky things I was able to be there for 3 days. Now, interestingly, I'd sat in conferences with Sid for days on end, and I would get really quiet and crash out and just fall asleep, basically, at the back of the room. I just couldn't stay awake. And I think that's because when my mind started to slow down, all of my biology was like, thank goodness, okay, so you need to rest. I know I felt different and I would feel quite deep things when I was listening to him, but I didn't really know how to slow down enough or hear enough for it to really shift something in me. And at this London conference, I remember sitting there day 3, really having nothing on it, and I felt different. And that's interesting because I remember sitting there looking around and feeling different. And the feelings I had were, I felt gentle. And I didn't have a insight that I am part of the universe and God and we're all connected. I didn't have, but I was in this really gentle state of mind where I felt a deep, really good feelings, and I couldn't have put a word on it. And I remember thinking, I feel weird. That's odd. And going, anyway, what's next? Because what do you do if you can't name it? And I remember thinking, why am I different? Because nothing's happened. Because I thought you had to have the big moment to be different. Like this spectacular moment. I thought there had to be a show in order for me to be different, or for me to really, if you look at it, I was looking for something to happen, for something to click in my head rather than to click in my soul or something else. Like something happened to me. And, you know, my reflections now are, if I look back, really what happened to me was I was actually not trying. So by default, I was listening in a different way.
Yeah, that's cool.
I could have got that 25 years earlier if somebody had been brave enough to pull me aside and said, "Hey, sweetie," mind you, I might have bitten their hand if they said that. I was kind of, if they said, if in somewhere someone had said, "Hey, sweetie, you know, there's another way to listen." I probably would have taken it really badly if they said, "You're not listening," because I wasn't listening. I was filling in the blanks and trying to guess what Sid meant and already know what he was pointing to and relate to what he was saying when he would say wisdom, and already have the answer by what he meant by mind. I mean, I was just like, so my mind was just filling in the blanks, trying to be clever for very sweet, innocent reasons. I was just like all over it. And if I would, if what would have probably done a lot if someone said, "Hey, there's another way to listen, and it's a way to listen that's where you don't have to try." I think that would have really done something for me. I don't feel bad about it. Kind of really grateful that I had that, I think of by accident, if there are accidents, moment, 29 years later. Or actually, no, then it was probably like 15, 20, I don't know. And so I'm at this conference and I'm feeling gentle. I'm like, this is really weird. What happened? I don't understand, because I thought you were supposed to, the event hasn't happened and I'm different. And I remember what I felt in that feeling inside of me is I knew that this feeling had been there the whole time. I'd just been too speedy to connect to it or fall down into it or to realize it or whatever. Use whatever word you like. I think of my mind when it's speedy as kind of lifting me up and away from the feelings that are natural, that are underneath the whole time. And in terms of insight, I did have a moment where Elsie Spittle's standing at the front of the stage and she starts telling a story about chocolate cake. Fudge cake. I like chocolate and I like cake, as long as it's gluten-free. Now, at this point, my thoughts were drifting down the river like dry leaves on the top of a river, right, really gently. Like that was totally unusual for me. So it's weird. I'm having an extraordinary experience, but it's so gentle. It's hard to sort of get dramatic about it. So my mind is floating. She's talking about chocolate fudge cake, and I don't even remember what she was wearing and how she was holding her hands. And then I'm like, yeah, I like cake. And the next minute she says something about your true nature. I'd known Elsie for years and I'd never heard her say that, or I'd never heard the feeling in her words that kind of hit me. Like it was like being poked with a cattle prod, but not in a bad way. It was like, because I'm saying this wasn't an insight in the obvious sense, because I had this shaking up, but it was profound. Actually, I spoke to Elsie about it, like, I don't know, 6 months or a year later. And I said, yeah, I got really impacted. And she says, "What is it? Beautiful, Lila?" I'm like, no, it wasn't good or bad. It was just really powerful. And I felt like somebody had blown a hole in my chest, because what I heard is there's me before thought. Now, I still wouldn't call that an insight, because I was looking for my thoughts to order themselves in a way that I would feel like I had it together and I was clever and okay, now I know what's happening.
Hmm.
Now I know how to do life. And instead, someone had come along and kicked over all my Lego blocks and they were all over the place. Yet there was something deeply true happening.
Something on the other side of the Lego blocks.
Yeah, like I was like, what? Because it's all happening in fractious bits, I hear inside myself laughing because my head wakes up, my intellect goes, oh, sugar. It was like workmen in my head who'd been having a tea break and fallen asleep. And they were like, hang on, an event happened. She feels different. We're supposed to be on top of this. We took a break. And I remember inside laughing, thinking, you're never going to understand. That's hilarious. Like I'm having this conversation with myself, but what I felt, and the words are a way to describe the sensation is, oh, there's a me before thought. And I was born with it. So I don't know, something hit me, but it's still in my mind of an insight wasn't what I was thinking you should look like or what I was looking for. Like I was looking for the linear line. Anyway, so the next bit is I leave the conference and I'm the catch-all. So Aaron was running the conference. So fair enough, he didn't pick up the kids that day. I left a bit early to go get the kids who were going to school about a 15-minute walk up the road. So I leave the conference and I step outside and it's a beautiful day. And I'm like, well, that was weird and lovely anyway. I have no idea what to do with that, but it felt great, but whatever, but okay. Like I was this bit discombobulated, but in a really, I couldn't put words to it. And I remember it was really nice to step out because the air was really fresh and lovely that day. And I start walking up the hill. And as I'm going up the hill, this feeling of loveliness starts to slightly evaporate. And the feeling of a cloud, like darker, more contained, more cramped, starts to happen about halfway up the hill. I'm starting to feel more crouched in and I'm starting to feel a bit boxed in. And my mind goes to, oh, it must be about to rain. Okay, literally think the change is happening because the weather's changing. So I stop and I look up, genuinely expecting to see some clouds because, like, okay, did I bring a coat? What's happening? Do I need to get out of the rain? And I look up and it's the weirdest thing. It's this beautiful blue sky with some really fluffy white clouds. Can you imagine my head's going, what's going on? Like, what? I'm like, none of this is in my stories. I've gone back. I've looked at all the things I think are true and that I know and that I'm guessing and working on. This is not making any sense. And I'm like, so the sky is fine. And I'm like, I don't know where to put that. So I keep walking. And I'm getting further up and I'm like, what are you doing then? It can't be the sky. And I start to look what I'm walking towards and I realize I'm walking towards how I describe it like I was stepping back into my head.
Mm-hmm.
So my head at that time looked like one of those, I don't know, 1950s sort of weird spaceship helmets they gave astronauts in the old movies with like 1,000 wires. And it's a little bit cheap because it looks like it's made on set, but it's got a ton of wires in it and they're all tangled in all different colors and grays and blacks and reds. And I realized, oh, I'm stepping back into how I think. And I could see the feeling I was stepping into. And it was a hot, tangled mess. And this was quite beautiful, actually. I looked at it and went, in a really neutral way, not a judgmental way. I went, oh, I'm doing that. I mean, the way to neatly say that, it wouldn't have been neat in my words in my head, is I was thinking my feelings, I was thinking my experience, but it wasn't, it doesn't come out like that often.
Mm-hmm.
When you're seeing something, you're like, oh, I'm doing that feeling. It was the first time I saw I'm creating the feeling I live in. Probably people had said that. I don't know. Wasn't listening. But it was the tangible kind of like grit under your nails experience. of being alive and seeing what I was doing. It was like, and I think one of the most powerful parts of that is I saw what I was doing and there was no judgment. It was so innocent and so pure and so sweet. The observation was so sweet. Ah, look what I'm doing. That's powerful.
Yeah, hugely. And it's, I think it's the sort of people's experience of describing what you've been through in their own words from their own experience is the underlying sentiment is the lack of judgment around it. It's seeing the innocence behind getting caught up in things. Oh, crikey. Well, that doesn't make any sense then. And because you're seeing it from a non-judgmental point of view about yourself, it changes the dynamic entirely, and gives you options from, do I continue walking into that space helmet, and the tangled thinking there, or is there another way? You don't need to know what that other way is. It's just, oh, right, that there's another possibility now.
Yeah. One of the jobs I did there years ago, when we moved to America, I was right in the middle of starting a career in fashion. We moved to Lacona, which has 800 people in it, or did at the time. And it was tumbleweeds for my career. So I did all kinds of jobs around design, fashion styling, website stuff. One of the jobs I did was wardrobe consulting for professional people wanting a wardrobe, for their work. And I found a pattern in wardrobes is that most people, even if they had a lot of money or medium or less, is they would have a cramped wardrobe, but 2/3 of it was shoulda, woulda, coulda. Right? Oh, I should, or I ought, or maybe I would, or like, what if I wear it one day? But they're ugly, but they're comfy. And what listening did is it cleared out all the shoulda, woulda, couldas. So there was all this space in my wardrobe of my head to see what was actually in there and to see if it still made sense. But I didn't do that on purpose. I didn't go after a mission. I'm going to go do this and I'm going to clear it out and get rid of the unhelpful thoughts and da, da, da. Just I had this space, and I think the space around it allowed me to go, these pair of pants don't make sense. Oh, I'm normally putting these on, but they have like wire wool inside them when I pull them on every time. Maybe I don't want to keep putting those on. Like the sort of monk jackets with the horsehair sticking out. Seriously, I was stepping back into a monk habit. I was like, I don't think I want to wear that again. But talking about judgment, I think it's like my head cleared out because I was listening naturally, because I wasn't trying, and I was at ease and I wasn't chasing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that ability to not judge it, I think, happened because there was space for wisdom. There was space for me to have fresh thoughts. Have you ever tried to fit a new garment in a wardrobe? When people go and say, I'm going to go and get something from the cupboard, and they like yank apart the coat hangers, and they literally, some people will get the elbow in and push and lean in order to shove something else in there. It's such a good analogy for like our heads are full of that stuff. Should, would, could I? And it's in it. And I feel like lack of judgment was not on the palette, but it was a natural quality when I had all this mental space. And the innocence, I see so much sweetness in that observation of what I was doing to myself. And it made choosing fresh, it was all this space around it to actually go, yeah, that resonates with me. Not what have I got to do and blah, blah, blah. This is really beautiful. It shows you what our nature, when we have space, all our natural qualities, so capable of doing all of this. It's like the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
If you if you live in sort of, you have healthy food and you give yourself a break and you rest and you allow your body to get in a healthy state, then your body has an ability to deal with things. And I think it's the same with the mind. We have an ability to have insight and have things occur to us, but it doesn't always look the way we think it should, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, that insight didn't match anything that I thought I should be having. Because there were people when I was training at One Thought that would have the amazing insights, like good for them. They'll be like, oh, I feel like all of the strings of attachment to what, I mean, they would have these beautiful moments where they would drop into this beautiful, they would have the event. They would have having these events where they were like, and I just feel so free. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm still really quite anxious, but I'm open. But I just think, it's like we have our own way of going about it. I think, and it's the feeling of insight is, I think you said earlier, like it's seeing something new. Actually, for me, a lot of the time, it's seeing the shoulda, woulda, coulda that's unhelpful. I don't even need to see anything new.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose you're right. It's like seeing, oh, this having a new thought about an old thought,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need to do that. And I think what's amazing is when you see you're doing something that's really unhelpful. I've got a really good analogy for you, actually. Aaron did this thing where it was about learning to run without hurting his knees. And what he realized was when he was walking, because the person who was working with him was teaching him, well, it's actually when you're walking that you create the bad habits that show up when you're running. And he realized that when he was walking, he had a rush, rush, rush feeling. It's like, oh, that can't be helpful. So he let go of that. I've got to be somewhere. Knowing how to walk without the rush, rush feeling is really natural.
Mm-hmm.
The only bit you need to see is the one that's taking you away from your nature, taking you away from what naturally occurs to you.
Yeah.
Because I think we're often sort of like truffle pigs trying to find the gold. And you're like, well, if you just saw what you're doing that's getting in the way of you being at ease and being more natural and clear and have things occur to you on its own, that happens on its own. We don't
Mm-hmm.
need to fabricate or go hunting for the insight. We just, in a way, it's like listening. If you want to know how to listen, the only thing you need to know is what listening isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and we experience that all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, so we all know what that is, and we all have the capacity to realize what good listening is when we experience it. And the ability to navigate that and calibrate ourselves on oh right, am I actually listening to this, or am I listening to reply to what's being said, or am I listening just out of politeness because I've got a point I want to get across and I don't want to stand on their toes, but I'll just I'll let their mouths flap around and the noises come out, but this is what I want to say, and that doesn't really matter. That's cool. That's cool. Now, I'm conscious that you guys are doing all kinds of exciting and interesting things these days, and I wondered if you wanted to share any of what you are doing, both from either Relationship Ready's point of view or the One Thought world, that the listeners might want to hear about.
So, we're always looking to simplify what we're doing because we get really excited and passionate about supporting, engaging, and creating change and impact, that we're constantly having to pare down what we do. But right now, in terms of where our heart is at, so One Thought was founded by Aaron Amara, and I came on board 12-ish years ago. And One Thought has predominantly been working with organizations, leaders, people who are creating. They're either creating a culture, or they're creating change, or they're creating initiative. And what's so amazing about working at that level is that you work with someone who is affecting the culture of an organization. You're affecting so many people just by affecting that leadership team or that leader. So One Thought's always been driven to where can we get the most impact and how can we challenge the status quo of what we think of as a healthy, clear state of mind. Because, I think we feel that the way that we talk about how to solve our problems is always after the fact, rather than going to the source of our own genius, which is our own clarity. We're kind of always trying to deal with the symptoms, I guess. And, our drive for the last couple of years has been climate. Both feel really keen to support leaders working with climate projects, organizations, everything from funding to grassroots to just the people who are trying to turn things around. So all of our kids have a healthy, habitable planet. We're really, really keen to help them take away the burden, because it's really hard staring at the stats and all the things that a lot of people working in climate are having to look at every day. And I would also link that to social injustice, the Indigenous voice. Like, they're so linked. And I think when you have a job that means you look at that every day, that's a lot. And the good news is that connected to your well-being and a mind that is at ease and clear is the most impactful version of you. So allowing people to take the burden and stress away as to be in service of themselves and their work. So that's been a huge passion or a drive. It's always been a passion, but we've got really much more explicit the last couple of years, because I was in the car a couple of years ago, and then this radio broadcast said we don't have 12 years. And I was like, shit, I've been working towards a 12-year deadline. Well, I was going to a bit like leaving the house. I was going to try and squeeze it in the last minute. Turns out you can't do that with the flat warming planet. You have to kind of be ahead of the curve. And so I've been really, really passionate about helping the people who have the expertise. They know there's amazing, incredible minds out there, and we want to help them take away the stress and burden, and to be able to show up, as daring as it says, lighthearted and clear and focused in a way that allows their deepest clarity and wisdom and intelligence to lead the way for them, and not have them be sacrificed humanly, because that's a tough gig. And it doesn't and actually there's a way that they can work in that without giving up their quality of life, their life, work-life balance. And then in regards to, relationship ready, that should be a whole nother podcast, because it's one of the things I absolutely adore doing. I mean, I feel like with that, you're getting I'm getting out of bed for climate. I'm getting out of bed because it's a good idea. But I'm also getting out of bed because I feel like part of my job is love. It's That's connection. Cool. People have a lot of thinking that blocks their ability to show up and connect more easily in relationships. And so I feel like I ran out of time, but that's
cool. Well, we will bookmark you for a future episode on relationship ready then. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming, Lila. It's been a joy.
It's been a pleasure chatting. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed the conversation, feel free to subscribe and join me and my new guests next time. If you're interested in the work I'm doing, or you think I can be of service to you or your organisation, please email dave@simplicityofmind.co.uk. Remember, see if you can find time to slow down and reflect. Those simple ideas might be worth listening to. Take care, and I hope you can join me in a couple of weeks.